Yes, I know, I need to get more Doctor Who props for my Doctor Who videos. I get it. But, and I will, as soon as I can get out of a little financial situation that I'm dealing with right now. However, that is not the subject of today's video. Today's video is a review on the most recent Doctor Who episode, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not a regular review. This is a Doctor Who review. What's the difference? A cup of tea. Anyway, so, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, the first episode officially, fully starring Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Let me just start by saying this. I really like this episode. I think this is a really strong, very good series opener for Jodie's incarnation of the Doctor. This is a full spoiler discussion of the episode, so if you haven't watched the episode, I would recommend that you watch it, then come back and watch the review. Now, whenever a new Doctor is being introduced into the series, there are several different points that I believe are essential to that character's introduction. And if you look at other Doctor introduction episodes over the years, you can kind of pretty much guess what I'm talking about. First of all, the introduction of the actual Doctor himself, or herself in this particular situation. How does the Doctor being introduced into the new era, so to speak? You could look at the David Tennant era, where it just shows up with a bang, smashing the TARDIS into a few buildings, and then quickly just introduces himself, and then passes out. You could look at the Peter Davison era, where he just took a little bit more time adjusting to himself. And he introduced a bunch of new stuff, like the Zero Room, like the fact that Time Lords, especially during their fifth regeneration, they have to sort of adjust to this brand new reality. Or you could just look at the Peter Capaldi example, where he just shows up and says, "Shush!" And that's pretty much sets the entire tone for the rest of the tenure of that particular Doctor. Now, I believe that Jodie did an amazing job with her introduction. How does Jodie Whittaker being introduced? She literally drops through the roof of a train and stops an alien entity from attacking a group of people. Already a solid introduction. You know exactly who this Doctor is and what does she stand for. Then the second point that I believe is essential for these Doctor introduction episodes is, how does this new Doctor navigate his or her new reality, being a completely new person. And continuing that scene on the train, I believe Jodie did a fine job. She doesn't remember who she is. She doesn't even remember what you call a tongue, which is a little bit new, but a little bit sort of a callback to previous Doctors losing some perspective. So yeah, that was handled pretty well. Then there's the actual story itself. What does the Doctor do on his or her first day? Essentially, this is literally the first day in these Doctors' lives. And it's always easy to forget that a Doctor literally just died. I mean, as in, not alive anymore. And this new Doctor has literally just been born. And Jodie pretty much says as much during the episode. She says, you kind of feel like you're about to die, and then you're being born. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but you get the idea. So, this is what a newborn, sort of infant, but already mature Doctor, mature person, would react. It always takes a while for each doctor to come to his or her own, realize and assess the situation around them, but always by the end of the episode, they get a pretty good handle on who and what they are. Some doctors handle it a little bit better than others. Some really don't handle it that well. And Jodie Whittaker, as I mentioned, she handles herself very well. However, that is not the only thing that goes on during that story, because they're not just going to make an entire episode of a doctor just adjusting to who she or he is. There has to be a story that's sort of a side plot. Like, for example, the Sycorax invasion, or the Daleks suddenly turning up, presumed dead but very much alive. Or a giant robot that's connected to an eco-terrorist organization. In this specific case, it's a very simple and easy to follow episode. A race of alien hunters sends one of their hunters to Earth to find a human trophy to prove his worth. Simple and honest Doctor Who storytelling. I've almost missed these sort of very small and simple Doctor Who stories that really doesn't need too much explaining. It's just there, and you accept it. And it's very easy to follow, especially since you're already dealing with this massive story element of introducing yourself to a brand new Doctor. Normally, the Doctor usually figures things out, like, way ahead of the actual writers. And you as the audience, you're always just playing catch-up to the Doctor, who usually throws hints of what the plot is about. But in these introduction episodes, since the Doctor is not always, it's not exactly completely who he or she is yet, they're kind of figuring out at a slower pace. But Jodie Whittaker, I believe, did it reasonably quick concerning the circumstances. Let's talk a little bit about the villain, Zim Shah, or Tim Shaw, as the Doctor affectionately calls it, or rather, not so much affectionately, but as a little bit of a mockery name that she decides to give him. He's nice, he's solid. I really like the costume, especially the full body armor, and the idea that he takes other people's teeth to decorate his own face. That's new. And as soon as the Doctor says, what kind of a person kills a man, and then actually takes the time to take one of his teeth? The only thing that was going through my head at that time was a hunter. We've seen this countless times, not just in movies or TV shows, but in real life. People just hunt predators and then make a necklace out of their teeth. We've also seen it in this recently in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. The distinguishing difference here is that this guy wears the teeth of his fallen victims on his face, which just makes it even more disturbing. The next point I want to touch on is the actual realization of who the Doctor is. After a brief time of adjustment, sometimes longer than others, the Doctor comes to the point where he or she realizes and remembers exactly who he or she is and what they stand for. Sometimes it's through a matter of shock, like getting your hand cut off and having to grow it back using your regeneration energy. And sometimes it's after a prolonged exposure to the Zero Room or a planet like Castrovalva. And in this episode, I believe it's being done very well. Probably not the best way that the Doctor's ever had to experience this stuff, but in a very good way, where she had to literally jump from one crane to another. And that was the big wake-up call that brought her back to who she is and who she's meant to be. And after that, she was basically the Doctor all over. And when she says, I am the Doctor, for the first time, and you as the audience member get the full realization that, oh yeah, she's the Doctor now, let's go. That was the highlight of the episode. Not to mention the whole speech she also gives with that whole realization, which is basically just calling out to all the negative fans that have had a less than stellar reaction to Jodie Whittaker being cast as the Doctor. She basically just shut them all up in that one speech. I still remember that the day that they announced that David Tennant was leaving as the Doctor, David Tennant, who is my personal favorite Doctor of all time. I still remember the day they announced that he would be stepping down and that Matt Smith would step in his stead. I was very much against it. I did not like the idea of someone else being the Doctor. And I really didn't like the idea of that someone else being Matt Smith. I don't know why. I just didn't really appreciate it. And he basically proved me wrong in one episode. Really, I watched the 11th hour and instantly my mind was changed. I loved everything about this new Doctor. I loved his new costume, his approach to life, his Doctor-ness. I liked his new sonic screwdriver, as you can see. And I especially liked the new interior to the TARDIS. And I have no doubt that I'm going to very much love the new interior to this new TARDIS once we actually see the new interior to the TARDIS. Speaking of the sonic screwdriver, though, let's just stop for a second to consider the fact that this time around, she literally actually built her own sonic screwdriver using materials she found lying around. Mostly using Earth circuitry, but also giving it an extra boost by using some alien technology that she found in Zimshaw's pod. And yeah, I believe that's the first time we actually see, on screen at least, the Doctor building and creating his or her own sonic screwdriver. It used to be just either he already had one that we didn't really get to see where it came from, or alternatively, the TARDIS just created one specifically just for him. I gotta admit, seeing Jodie Whittaker getting her hands dirty and getting all up in super mechanic mode and tinkering and building her own sonic screwdriver, as well as that teleporter device at the end, I was not expecting to see that, and I'm so glad that I got to see it, and it caught me off guard. I really liked it. I'm hoping maybe we can see more of this new tinkering side of the Doctor going forward. Finally, the final point that I personally believe that every new Doctor introduction episode has to hit on is the costume. Because the costume has always been, and always will be, one of the most important factors of each and every Doctor. And Jodie Whittaker is no exception. Usually in the past we've always seen the Doctor go through several different costume changes before settling on the look that best suits them. We've seen the Fourth Doctor go through several costume changes before he finally found one that the Brigadier actually approved. We've seen the Seventh Doctor try to revisit some of the old classics. We've seen the 10th Doctor in his massive wardrobe in the TARDIS, and sometimes the costume just comes out naturally, like in the case of the 3rd Doctor having to wear his own new costume out of necessity, or the 8th Doctor finding whatever costume he could find because he literally couldn't find any clothes, eventually settling on someone's Halloween costume, which is a perfect origin story for the costume as any. Probably my favorite introduction to a costume was the 11th Doctor, probably because of the actual scene that it takes place in, where you actually get to see Matt Smith fully become and embrace the Doctor persona. This costume change was brief, but when you finally get to see Jodie Whittaker coming out with her full costume from those boots that she wears, the actual shirt and pants, and right down to the long coat, that was just a moment of pure happiness to me. That was the moment that I remember saying to myself, yes, this is our new Doctor. Good luck, Jodie. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the companions. This is the first in a very long time where we actually get more than one companion. We actually get a whopping 4 companions in this episode. Technically it was 5, but I guess the crane worker, what's his name? Carl, I think. I don't really count him as much because he didn't actually spend the majority of the episode following in the Doctor's footsteps, which is something that pretty much every companion should do, right? That's why they call them companions. So, Grace, Ryan, Jasmine, and Graham. Those are the 4 new companions for this episode, and still sticking true to the modern Doctor Who method of doing things. Each of those companions are somewhat intertwined with each other. We've had stuff like that in the past, like for example, Rose Tyler and her mom being sort of companions. They've had, as well as Mickey being Rose's boyfriend. We've had couple be the Doctor's companions in the form of Amy and Rory. But fortunately, it looks like this new era of Doctor Who goes a little bit away from making the companions like super important, the entire universe rests on their shoulders, to more simpler characters, normal people. That's what the companions have always been, going all the way back to Ian and Barbara. They were just a bunch of school teachers who just happened to stumble upon the Doctor's life completely by accident. Those were normal people. They didn't had any sort of importance. They didn't save the universe. They weren't secretly children of a dying star. They were just a couple of normal school teachers from Earth, and they were basically the audience eyes, an inside look into the complicated world of the Doctor. And it looks like Doctor Who is going back to its roots on this one, and actually giving us a bunch of companions that aren't really special to begin with, but we're going to fall in love with them anyway. Unfortunately, though, we have to talk about the unfortunate passing of Grace, which was, I guess you could say, was completely unnecessary. The villain was already defeated. He went back to his home planet as a loser because he didn't complete his task the way he should have. There really was no reason for that orb of tentacles to still be around. It probably should have died as soon as Zim Shah was transported back to his own planet, but I guess the writers felt it was necessary to kill one of their characters off in the first episode to maybe probably set the tone for the series moving forward. I don't know what the executive decision was, but I guess I could have done without it. I could have. I would have much preferred that she would survive and potentially be part of the Doctor's entourage of companions. But I guess the BBC kind of shot themselves in the foot with that character, because in pretty much all of the promotional material for this new series, starting from the teasers and trailers to the actual Comic-Con panel, there was no sign of Grace in any of those. And we've already known for a while that Graham, Ryan, and Jasmine are going to be the only 3 companions for the season going forward. And there was no mention of Grace. So you kind of have to figure that she's either going to decide she's not going to choose to go with the Doctor, or, well, she's going to be killed off. And it's sad that we had to find out that way, and you already had the idea in the back of your mind that she's probably not going to make it out alive, but it happens, and despite the rather unnecessary death of that character, it gave us a little bit more depth to all the other characters. She was really the emotional core and the center of the other three characters, and now without her, they're all going to have to rely on the Doctor for moral support, I believe. Not to mention the fact that they actually didn't really choose to be companions, they just happened to be whisked away into space with her. That kind of adds to the experience of these new characters being new companions, and I actually like that. It actually reminds me of the first season of the fourth Doctor era, where basically on the second story of that season, the Doctor and his companions travel to Earth, and they leave the TARDIS behind on the space arc, and they managed to have 3 full stories without the TARDIS, just going around from one place to the other. And I have a feeling that's what this new series is going to look like. It might be some time before we actually get to see the new TARDIS, how it looks like on the inside, and I'm fine with it. I guess it will, when we actually see the TARDIS, it will actually make the wait worthwhile, because you really want to see the TARDIS now, but the show's gonna stretch it out and make it a little more rewarding once you actually get to see the TARDIS in full form and in context, which I believe is much better than just getting to see, oh look, this is the new TARDIS, this is how it looks like now. Hey! Finally, let's discuss the cliffhanger. So, the Doctor transported herself to what she thought was going to be the planet where she was going to find the TARDIS, and guess what? She actually ended up transporting herself and her new companions to the dead of space, with no planet anywhere in sight. Now, how exactly is this going to go? Well, it's always possible that some passing by spaceship was gonna find them and bring them on board. It's always possible she could use the sonic screwdriver that she built on her own to just summon the TARDIS. Anything is possible at this point. I have no idea where the show is going, and I love it. Finally, I think we kind of have to talk about the fact that there was no intro to this episode. That kind of bugged me, because that's one of my favorite parts of Doctor Who. The music is one of the main reasons I actually became a fan of the show, because I'm a huge fan of the music, going all the way back from the William Hartnell era all the way to now. I'm a huge fan of the music. I usually listen to the music when I'm feeling down on my luck and I need a little pick-me-up. The music always just makes me happy, and it was kind of a bummer that we didn't get to see the new title sequence, which I was very much looking forward to, but I mean, we did get to hear it at the very end, so yeah, that's something, I guess. Speaking of the very end, it looks like my fear had come true, that we didn't really get to see a teaser. Instead, we just saw a coming soon with all the new guest stars that are apparently going to be on this new season. Yeah, it was fine. I mean, I pretty much said as much in the reaction I did to the coming soon. It was fine. It was nice to know the new faces we're going to meet. But, I mean, I've seen a lot of people online saying that they actually preferred it this way, that they don't want to know anything new about the series. Well, I guess I'm a little bit different than most people on that regard. I really wanted to see a teaser, but we didn't get one. We're going to see the next few episodes anyway. We've got 2 whole months of Doctor Who right in front of us, and I'm stoked about it. I cannot wait to keep doing these episode reviews every week, because that's what I'm going to do, I hope. And I really hope you guys enjoyed my first breakdown and analysis of the new episode of Doctor Who, and maybe possibly hopefully, I don't think so, but maybe I will finally get some more Doctor Who merch to show off in this these upcoming reviews, because I desperately need them, as you can plainly see. So, until next time, guys. Hello again, everybody. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, where I do all kinds of weird stuff like showcase all these things, you know, trailer reactions, movie reviews, all kinds of fun stuff. So, until next time, I'll see you guys next time.